So, welcome to the RecWired podcast. On this episode, we have an old friend, I think back for the third time. We've got Matt Chambers, who's CEO of Loxo. Welcome back, Matt.
Thank you so much, Andy. Looking forward to it.
Good. Quite a lot's changed since we last spoken, but for the folk who don't know Loxo, tell us the story. How did it start and what was the vision?
Yeah, thank you. I've shared this quite a bit. For those of you who've never heard this before, I took a long path. Loxo's been a really, really long path. I've actually put my butt in a chair and have been in the seat, but I founded Loxo 2012. I'm a first principle learner, so I have to understand how something works myself. So I started actually recruiting, wasn't learning quick enough. So I partnered with 7 search firms in Denver, Colorado, across different specialisms. And I started out doing split fees, pretty quickly learned how they're all doing things, primarily perm placement, exec search. And then really quickly got to a point where I used those split fees to pay contract developers. Then I found my CTO. That was like 2 years into it. And then went all in on Loxo. And yeah, now we're here, a decade later, almost 100 employees, went from 25-ish to 100. It's all customer funded, organic. We're not venture funded. We don't want to be. And super, super excited. Yeah, with kind of the path that we've taken. Took a long time, but.
Yeah. I remember when we first spoke. So I was sat there, and I do a lot of demos, and we do a lot of vetting of partners before they come required. And I heard a little bit about you guys, and you came on the call and you said, we're not an ATS, we're a talent intelligence platform. I'm like, yeah. It's everyone's trying to be something. We're not. We don't do this. And then I saw it, and I'm like, wow, this is for real. So. I know you've got some pretty strong views on, the ATS. It won't be here, but tell us your views on why you think the ATS is the wrong terminology or won't indeed exist.
Yeah. So as we all know, this is a small industry, right? As a founder CEO, it doesn't behoove me to say things that we can't back up. It doesn't help, but I've gotten more and more comfortable with this over the years. And in fact, I have a responsibility to do it. A legacy ATS will not exist. And it might be 5 years. Yes, there'll be some, but you have hundreds and hundreds of them. It's a database. It doesn't do anything. You huck CVs in there. It goes into a black hole. It doesn't manage the workflow. You have to have an ecosystem of bolt-ons. But anyway, when we looked at I am a problem solver, and I love technology. I'm obsessed with product design and simplicity and automation and kind of the futurism. And so way back when I was trying to understand the business model, I didn't really care. It wasn't just to copy some ATS, right? I look at how things exist in the world today, and I say, I'm curious, how could you do something better and make it elegant and beautiful and easy to use? And so through that process, that's what we did. And it wasn't an ATS, right? So when I would talk to people at the time, they're like, well, what is it? I'm like, well, it's not an ATS. And most of our products and data was very immature at the time. It was horrible, right? It just takes a long time. And it takes a decade to build enterprise software. But I coined it Talent Intelligence Platform in 2013 because I was obsessed with AI and machine learning at the time, way before the market did. And that's what we coined it. And then over time, what we had to do is define it and educate the market. And that's really what we learned in the US and we brought over globally, and kind of what we're doing now in the UK is where you go from anybody who knows the product adoption like life cycle curve, you start with early adopters, super innovative people at the tip of the spear. Those are the wild ones that always get the new iPhone. And then you go to the early adopters who are like, okay, I'd like to get new stuff, but I'm not quite that bold, right? And then you get the later kind of mass market, then late majority, and so the US, we're kind of past mass market. But yeah, that's kind of how I approached it. Completely different platform, bring something to market that's never existed and go for it.
So rather than just sort of copy something that's in existence, it's like if we were starting out, I think what I really like about that sort of principle is it's like the electric car principle. If you look at the firms that are petrol and diesel producers, they go and produce something that looks like a car. That's their mindset. If you're Elon Musk and you've never built one of those, you go and just take a different approach to it.
Yeah, and everyone has a different skill set. Some people are visionary, some people are ex operators. It doesn't necessarily matter, but for me, that's my passion. That's what I'm obsessed with. That's why I do it. I wanted to have a blank canvas in the world and say, bring this to the market. And that's why you can be a founder. But yeah, to me, I would be bored stiff if I took a look at an existing thing and just try to make it a little bit better incrementally. That's not what the marketplace needs. But especially in Web 3.0, which is how I really fell in love with machine learning way before Chat GPT and all of this came alive. And again, it's not going to replace recruiters. It's more of a co-pilot, but Web 3.0, which we'll probably get into later on, is a big part of this and why a legacy ATS won't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look, I was on a panel session the other day, and we were talking about AI, and it's the buzzword, and not all AI is equal, is it?
Nope, not at all. It's funny. I'm grateful that it's topic du jour now and everyone's bringing it up. And generative AI has really brought that front and center. Once you have a UI that you can look and play with, and it's like, wow, just like you said, all of a sudden I saw Loxo and I was like, I've heard of this stuff. I've seen a million tools. This is also what a lot of people do. They're like, I'm always open to see stuff. And then you see it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is very different.
Yeah.
Generative AI is at that point, but AI is just code. It's software code. There's different implementations and job to be done. So that's why like OpenAI or Anthropic, that's why they're not going to be the end all be all for recruitment. A recruiting software company, tech company is going to have to bring this to the market, which is, again, it's just code. Every company won't even talk about AI here in the future. It'll be, you're a software company.
Yeah, and I guess you actually need to bake it into the experience. It's not good just, if AI is still being prodded around by humans, then that's pretty limited use case.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Yeah, and it's good too for people that are entering the market, new entrants, right? Because you can raise a lot of capital around saying you're an AI company, and if you're not going to raise capital. So it's good. Innovation is amazing for consumers of products and services. So recruitment is kind of entering a golden era, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
If you were started recruiting again now, so having done it, what would you advise yourself 12 years ago differently to do
Oh my
differently?
God. Um, that's an interesting question in terms of like the actual recruitment aspect or just building Loxo or
Yeah, just I guess both actually. I'm keen to understand, how you see the job as effectively moved on, and what you would do now differently, knowing what you know now, and also as well, what are the sort of, I guess, sort of learns from 12 years of building Loxo.
yeah, no one's ever asked me that. And it's actually a really important question because just like no two businesses are the same, no two paths are the same. I did it because for a lot of reasons, but I didn't have millions of dollars in my bank account to self-fund it. I had tens of $20,000 left in my bank account. Nobody funded this, right?
Yeah.
I also am a first principal learner, so I have to figure it out. And I didn't want to raise capital. So an entrepreneur, you figure it out. Just like a lot of listeners, you just figure it out. It doesn't matter the market conditions. It doesn't matter when your back's against the wall. You just figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, you're not going to make it. And I was like, well, I'm going to run out of money. I better figure this out quickly. How can I learn? I wasn't learning fast. I'm like, oh my God, if I don't make a placement, I'm going to run out of money. What do I do about it? Well, iterate. It's like get more opportunities, do split fees. Oh my God, I can do 5 of these accounts. I can learn quicker, right? And then it's pretty soon like, whoa, I'm learning quick. I'm making a lot of placements. Now I can afford to pay some designers and developers. And, it's just jump in, jump off the cliff, learn people that learn the fastest and just are relentless and work hard, right? You'll figure it out. And
I guess the challenge, I see that with a lot of founders in recruitment. And typically, someone who starts a business, they would have left probably a nice salary, maybe a nice contract book, and they start day one and they hustle, 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 and they make their placements because they've got to pay the mortgage, pay the family, etc., etc. And it's a really powerful way from motivation. And most people I know get it, right? Because they work and they hustle and The challenge often then is once you're out of the woods and you've replenished that bank account and you've got some runway, then what?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's tough. It's and a lot of these questions just go back to who you are as a human and your why. What's your why? Why are you doing it? What gets you out of bed in the morning? If it's for money, you're never going to make it. The people that are money motivated, you're never going to make enough money, right? Like you said, what are you going to buy, a second bigger house or a nicer car? And it's like that doesn't drive people. Um, so for me, my why is to do an impossible against all odds with a small elite team. I'm very team oriented. I like people to have a chip on my shoulder. I'm like, there's no possible way you're gonna ever do that. It's like, well, watch. And I like that. Very competitive. So that works for me. I like to also, like, my father taught me this a long time ago. He was a small custom home builder growing up, and he never wanted to expand. He built one custom home at a time, and everything he did was like perfection. And I'm like, why you can't cut corners? And he always taught me this as a kid. It's like the sushi master, right? It's like you practice doing the rice for 10 years, like that's all you do. It's like, craftsmanship. Take pride in that. Don't cut corners. And if you make everything a 20 out of 10, and do it over the long term, brick by brick by brick, that it's impossible for the world to ignore it. And if you take pride in that in the journey and pride in what you're doing, it matters to your customers and your employees. And most people don't. The vast majority of people want shortcuts in life. They want to copy things. And they'll jump in and do it for the short-term reasons, which is not sustainable. So that's something that's worked well for us.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, it's the passion, the drive. I've always joked with you about what's the number for someone to knock on your door and come and buy Loxo, and
Yeah.
and
Yep. I get pounded on for years, and it's a good thing, right? If you're doing things right. But again, if you're money motivated, I think I'm not going to bring up names, but my co-founder and I were in our office in Denver. I think we had 7 or 10 employees at the time, and a big brand name that we all know. And some of them, different groups around, knocked on our door, right? And it's like, no, we're not in it for the money. We're in this to bring something to market. But you know, you
yeah.
you gotta
What else would you do? You'd be sat there curious with,
start a new one. And it's like, no, it's some people are like, they'll just start a new company after company after company. And yeah, maybe that's what inspires them, but it's also potentially because they're not building anything that substantial. It's almost impossible to build a company to the scale that we're at now. Your team, your culture, a category leader with this much upside, long term. We have the chance. Our mission is to create the greatest recruiting software company out there. There's a lot of, like, LinkedIn is a social network, right? You have like big Workday companies or HCM. Other companies are really good ATS, but there's no world-class recruiting software technology company globally. So we have a lot of upside.
I remember reading Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, and he attributes a lot of the success of Nike basically to the fact that he could just get on and run it. If people wanted to invest, fine, but they weren't going to have a say in it. I think he basically put A shares and they had B shares, and he didn't run it by the market. He ran it by what would make a good shoe company.
Yeah, that's top 5 favorite books. That's just unbelievable book, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it got me through some dark times in Egypt. That one actually. That's another story for another day. So obviously you started in the States, and I think coming to the UK, obviously I'm sure you did the odd spot deal with people who sort of heard of you, but actually bringing your operation to the UK in terms of sales support, the infrastructure that you need to do that has been around 3 years now. The question I always get asked is, what's the difference in recruiting in the States and recruiting in the UK? So I'm interested to hear your differences from how you see the UK businesses are different from the US businesses.
Yeah, if you ask our sales team, they say it's radically different, right? It's so much easier in the US. Everyone says that. And then we're like, well, how about you guys have some conversation in the US? And they're like, well, it's the same. I mean, recruitment's recruitment. You know that. We have customer partners globally. They have offices all over the globe. But there's major cultural nuances, right? Major. I think for me, the reason why we didn't go into the UK earlier, it's very dense. It's a perfect fit. It's so dense and it's also more mature in a way where I feel like people in the US, it's just there's so many per capita recruitment organizations, staffing firms in the UK, where it's like it's your vocation. It's like in the US, it's more of like a lifestyle. It's more like entrepreneurial, I feel like, and it's just a more mature industry from what I have experienced. I also think it's more difficult, right? It's a lot more skeptical, but it's like the herd mentality. We run anytime you're in a tight ecosystem with a big group, you have that herd mentality. Everyone makes the same decision. It's like, what do you think? What do you think? I don't know. Well, what do you use? What's your tech stack? So it to be perfectly candid, it was really difficult. And anytime you're penetrating a new group and trying to share it because of that skepticism. So that's what we found. They're also pretty tough. The recruitment industry, we talk about it a lot. Our customer success team is one of the most difficult sectors you could ever be in SaaS because sales, they'll talk online, but they don't, recruiters are everywhere, everywhere. You could do anything right, everything right, and you do one wrong thing, and they'll post it everywhere. And it's like, oh my God, they can't stand your platform. It's like, no, that's just, you have 100 customers, one person says it, that everyone thinks it. So the tribalism, the data, the density of our concentration of organizations and just the maturity, it's just different. It's tough to get into, but it's a good thing, right? I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, the tribalism could be positive and negative. I remember when we started working with you guys, and first in our dinghy group, which is our 1 to 5 group, people started using it, and you developed a cult status. No Loxo, no party, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was, and actually, I think people will look to other people for validation around, yeah, okay, the salesperson says it's good, but is it really, really good? And how does it work in my use case?
Completely. And that's something that took me forever. A big reason why we're putting such a focus on the UK now is really around timing. And I learned our lesson the hard way. Early on, it didn't really matter. You just had to go to market and take your licks and keep improving and iterate over time. You talk to recruiting organizations, start small, find your beachhead market, expand outside of that. Well, you also have learned, like, if you say something you don't deliver in a small market, it's going to ruin your reputation, right? And so you can't wait until things are perfect. It's impossible with software. No software is perfect. IBM, Oracle's monster software is not. In fact, it's horrible software.
Yeah.
But in this space, with how it is, you have to be able to deliver. So that's you start with a small end. They're pretty finicky and fickle, but they're great, and they test and play with tools. When you move into the larger organizations, it's all about risk management, right? But they're way far behind. The bigger, medium-sized, large organizations, as you know, are decades behind, and they still think they're really innovative, and they're not. They're 2 decades behind.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge around sort of keeping up and keeping current, and just really understanding where the market moves. And I think the other thing you've probably seen from you guys is that you're not just in that small space now. You've started to move up into our bridge group, so making sales in that space, and taking on the sort of significantly more seats. And has that been an evolution of the product, or is that just the market being more comfortable with you, I guess?
Yeah, good question. I was having this conversation the other day with our VP of sales. The product I'm very biased, of course, as the founder and CEO of Loxo, but there's no better ATS CRM in the world. We compete all day. We know our competitors. There's no features we don't have that the brand names have. But it's about risk, and that's how it is for any enterprise that's doing change management, right? And if you have a bigger organization, leaders in general are the easy thing is the status quo. You don't have to make a decision because you don't get in trouble. Your neck's not on the line. So people are like, kick the buck down the road, not a big deal. But at some point in time, it's like our ATS at CRM is not the problem. And it's like, well, if it's not the problem, if it's good, why are you buying 15 bolt-on tools? And why do you have 40 consultants? And why are you trying to build on top of something? You're not getting faster. You're not getting more innovative. You're not getting more efficient. You're wasting a lot of time And that's what's happening. So like the larger ones, what happens in the US or anywhere, I think in 2014, I would talk to some of the biggest in the world. And it was mostly what they were just build versus buy. We landed some early on, and we struggled to onboard them. We just weren't mature enough as an organization. You know, their UI and technology hasn't really changed much in 15 years since it's been there. But what's happened now is we have an unbelievable onboarding, unbelievable training, unbelievable data migrations. Um, there's nothing wrong with it. It's more just the change management and education awareness. And once people get comfortable with that, you'll have early adopters. You get one, you get 10, if you can get 10, you get 100. After that, I think we have I don't know how many we have in the UK now, over 500 customer partners, 1,000 customer partners, easy. But you know, that's why it's time now you lean into it pretty heavily. But getting past the first tranche is the hardest part.
Yeah, and the addressable market in the UK, the figures are depending on what you listen to, but somewhere north of 30,000 is generally the accepted. So, you know, there's definitely market for you to go. You know, by no means is that the limit.
Yep, and it's high quality. You know, I think that's the difference as well. I think in the United States, North America, there again, it's a vocation. It's like a career vocation path, right? You don't. Whereas in the US, people can come in and out. They'll go in-house. They'll try a different career path and be a dentist or something, you know. And it's a vocation in the
Is that
UK,
a
which is
US
really
thing, or
nice.
is that a generational thing?
I don't. Yeah, good question. It's and it might be market conditions too, of course. Like you know, but it's not an easy path, as everyone knows, right? Especially when market conditions, economy are tough. It's not for everybody. Definitely not easy, but the ones that do well, there's nothing like it, right? Being a recruiting agency.
No, recruiting's tough, you know, and having done it, yeah, honestly, we used to talk about champagne and razor blades, you know, those sort of days, and but when I'm speaking to people who, you know, yeah, I still talk to people who are just starting out in recruitment and also just starting their own firms as well. And yeah, you're going to get knocks, but that just makes the victories and successes just that much sweeter as well. And the rewards are there for people. There was a guy called John Lee I used to work with, and he said, "No one ever fails at recruitment; you just give up."
Yeah.
And yeah, I really do agree with him that you know it's about just getting through, just just making it through. Um, I I think the outlook is a bit difficult as well at the moment. I don't know how you're finding it, but every recruiter that I speak to is about business development. And normally, you know, if we looked a year or two ago, it's all about candidates. But in the last, you know, in the last year, 6 months, it's all been about BD. How do I get my people to BD? Is that a theme you're seeing across both US and UK?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And it's just the market conditions, which is a good thing. It's an employer-driven market now. Um, the thing that we've learned a lot, like anything, there's no silver bullet, right? And people say BD. So as a technology vendor, they'll come to you and say, "What do you have for BD?" Like, just turn on your computer and give me a demo. Like, hold on a second. All you have to do is really quickly is like ask a couple questions. How do you do it today? Well, we don't. What do you mean you don't? You don't do BD. You have to do. I don't. What do you do? Well, we don't. Okay, so you're asking me, um, us to solve your problem with technology, and it's actually not necessarily that. So there's like a lot to BD to unpack. And what we've explored and had a million conversations over the time, it's a good thing. This is really good pressure because it's making recruiting organizations level up. Like you said, you just said razor blades and champagne era. Things are getting more competitive and more sophisticated. It doesn't matter how you are, whatever your path and your why and where you want to go, pick that. But BD, so we have some customer partners that have 80 global offices. They use our sales CRM. They love the deals. That's never existed before as part of the talent intelligence platform. Never existed. So you used to have to go, people built on top of Salesforce. They had Job Science and Talent Rover were the first two great companies, but they didn't work for the recruitment side. So a lot of people will still build on top of Salesforce, as you probably know. But then you have all these objects, and then it's a regular database. That will not work. That's not Web 3.0. It'll never work, ever. People will continue to do that. They'll waste a lot of time and money, and it's fine. It'll get the job done, but there's a much, much, much better path BD goes back to there's no silver bullet. There's structure and team, and you have to specialize labor, but you do account based, just like sales and SaaS companies do. You find your ideal prospects, you predict who's your best fit customer and why. You create a strategy around that. You scrape the data or pull it out through a system. And so if you're jumping back and forth between tools and paying for Zoom infos and all these bolt-ons, now you have to pay a lot of money. You have to train all your team members, right? There's a lot. And so it's part data, part workflow, part account-based, part strategy. And then, yes, you need a sales CRM. And again, if you want Salesforce, most of our customer partners use ours. A lot use HubSpot. We have a great integration with HubSpot. Usually, though, that's for the marketing side at the very top of the funnel, which is what HubSpot was for. So again, it just depends on how massive you want to get. Do you want to be a small boutique with 10 people, 5 people, lifestyle business? Do you want to dominate your market and grow and get acquired? And that kind of dictates what type of business development. It doesn't take as much energy and effort as people think if they just want to get, 10 extra job orders for the year. You don't have to get fancy. Just pick up a list and blast the phone and you'll be just fine. That's BD, right? That's how it's been done forever.
I think one of the big changes since I recruited it was all about how get the contacts on your database. You've got to own the data's yours. And I think the two things that probably changed that, I think one's the existential sort of world thing of you don't need to own it, you rent it. So I think about my music now. I don't buy CDs. I have them on Spotify. I don't need to own them because I can rent them anytime. I think you'll see things like almost car will be a service at some point. You're seeing that with things like Zipcar. But what's interesting for me is that it's the whole idea of, people say, but are you Loxo source? Do I own, are they my records as well? Actually, do you need them? Do you need to own stuff that needs to be updated all the time and stuff? Or are you actually just better off renting it sometimes?
Yeah, it's so funny you said that. That analogy is amazing. So for me, my vision from day one, when I told our early team, and it was always about data and all in one system. And for me, it was so clear. I kept telling them over and over, every meeting, every quarter, I'm like, just so we're on the same page, we all understand that you're going to have one record per human that's always up to date in different companies and entities. And they're like, really smart, unbelievable, world-class people. And it like the dots just do not always connect for everyone in the same way, right? But what you just said, the analogy for some reason that really works is you rent it just like Spotify or Apple, iTunes. And yes, you're exactly right. That's the difference between why a regular ATS will not exist. You dump CVs, it's out of date every year. 70% of your data is out of date. It's worthless. You can't use that. You can't leverage it. You can't get acquired with crappy data. You have a lot of problems with duplicates. No one uses it. They can't search your own database. So you just go to job boards for low-hanging fruit or LinkedIn, right? And LinkedIn's very slow. It costs a lot of money. There's a much better way, but the data is tough and people expect perfect data, and that's a challenge.
Reduce their LinkedIn spend as a result of using Loxo.
Yes. Yeah. The smart ones, but the smart ones were not full tilt. So say you have 20 recruiters, the smart ones were not full tilt anyway on LinkedIn Recruiter, unless they're just have all sorts of money. And in the past, it was more affordable. But the reason why you're doing that is primarily for InMails, right? And if you have a great network, you built that network over time, you already have relationships. You don't really need to just pay $10,000 a year for InMailing. It's like you get the free version or Sales Nav or Lite. So yeah, a lot of people do that, or they'll, and then they're realizing there's a better way to pipeline data. I just spoke with a big firm the other day that are moving to Loxo, and they said, our CEO's goal is to have a database of all of the, enter their demographic in the database. And I said, perfect. That's step number one in talent intelligence platform. Get everyone in your specialism in your database, get their contact info, and build those relationships and nurture over time. It's like obvious, right?
Yeah.
Obvious. Step number one, but no one does that. And instead they mess with bolt-ons and tools. And it's like, you haven't even done step one yet. If you do that, you're going to make a lot of placements and be a lot more efficient and drop your cost by 70% over time.
Recruitment's actually a really simple job. People just complicate it.
Super. Well, yes, it is. we're not going to Mars. You have a open requisite, whatever. Is it perm? Is it retained? Do you have multiple roles? You have people, you got to match them pretty quickly and efficiently and you'll be more profitable, but people get, yeah, they get,
Explain that to my kids. I said it's like an expensive game of Snap. And you remember that card game where you used to have to turn over and remember where you'd match them up and where that symbol was and you'd match them up. It's literally about being the quickest and the best of that. And, it used to be record cards, now it's Sierra, and now it's time, it basically is that. It's about matching people together as quickly as you can and as efficiently as you can.
yep. And that's what one of the epiphanies I had when I was exploring it, that shocked me. I think it was part of the culture, right? Though you have a fun culture, you're making enough placements, you're having fun with your buddies, you're out in the community, having a good laugh, some drinks, and that's good enough, right? But every once in a while, there'll be a really hungry, ambitious recruiting organization. They're like, I'm gonna figure this out to do it faster, make a lot more profit. And they grew like crazy. But I don't know necessarily. I don't think tech companies were doing that before. They were just building whatever the market asked for. But that's what we're trying to help our customers do is why would you not do this as fast and easy and efficiently as possible? Why would you not want to do that?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think there's going to be, we've seen a sort of indecision around buying at the moment on a number of things through the partner network. Our recruiters are finding that companies aren't investing. This is mainly UK specific. I think the election happening is probably a good thing, because I think, anyone who was waiting around on that, I think, you'll get a clear answer. And the thing that kills investment is uncertainty. I guess you got a similar thing in the US this year with, the election. And do you think that'll have a big bearing on people's investment attitude?
Yeah, there's no doubt. For the same reasons you just shared. So no doubt. Makes it hard, right? Hard to plan. Some people check out. What do they say? Invest or go away in May or something. What's the whole concept they used to talk about? Sell in May, go away. But it's like, especially in the EU, take some time off in the summer for holiday. Elections will add to it. But again, it's opportunity. When everyone else is relaxing and hanging out, people can do it. You should. But there's great opportunity. Sometimes it's when things are slow, that's time to level up. It's good investment. Like a lot of our competitors are laying people off. There's another huge layoff announcement the other day from Seek Out. I don't know if you saw that. They're a sourcing platform, 30% headcount. A lot of these companies are laying off. We're not. We grew like crazy. People are moving. A lot of people are moving because it's a good time. They never had the chance because they were drowning in job orders before. It just depends, right? COVID, everyone thought would be a really difficult year for everything, and it was one of the best of all time.
I must admit, during COVID, I'm just a numbers guy, in terms of my attitude, right? I look at data as opposed to, and I try and take the emotion out of it. And I remember in the UK, everyone was like, jobs are down by 40%. And it was like, that's massive, until you realize that 60% of recruiters have been furloughed. So all of a sudden, you've actually got a much better opportunity. I remember there was a few firms that, stood strong. They got on PSLs they've been chasing for years, just because, people, had, effectively just shit the bed and not based on data, and had like literally furloughed everyone. They saw the opportunity to de-risk it completely rather than just actually that. I remember being asked actually what S3 would do, and I said typically I know what they'll do. They'll work out, they'll plan, they'll look at the data, and they'll have scenarios for the bigger guys who've been in these sort of experiences before didn't take those snap decisions and were rewarded for that. But yeah, there's definitely opportunity, and Dolce is sort of talking to me about the amount of good people coming on the market now that recruiters wouldn't have, companies, they wouldn't have moved, or companies wouldn't have got near. But there's some real opportunity for those who go first. The challenge with recruitment I always find, as you say, it's in herds. So once someone goes, they all go, and then everyone's looking around at each other, and no, you know, are they running in the right direction or not? You're just running with the herd.
Yep, completely, especially in the UK. But you know, I think we all realize the market conditions are going to be difficult for a while. But like you just said with Dewalta, there's lots of pockets of unbelievable things. There's always pockets. There's always pockets. Companies and organizations exist because they have people and humans, and good talent will always be in demand. So I don't know. Personally, I think tough conditions make, you know, iron sharpens iron. Competition does good things. The people who want to be there, it's like, you know, the brick walls are not there to keep people out. It's there to keep the ones that don't want it bad enough to make it, right? So yeah, it's exciting. There's a lot of innovation. There's just so much, right? But that's anyone who's wants to just be comfortable forever and just hope things just stay the way they are is going to really struggle, right? It's just constant, perpetual, you know, growth mindset. It's not easy, but people get used to that muscle. It's like they do really well. They thrive. They get used to it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's that constant pressure to succeed and improve, and you know, not rest on your laurels. I'm not sure when the pod's going to go out, but you're going to be in London in the next week or so. Looking forward to it.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, we this is the first big event we've done. And again, it's all based on timing, but we have again, I'd have to take a look at the exact customer footprint in the UK, but we have some really big customer partners now in the UK that are really, really happy. The implementations have gone well, picking up a ton of steam. Our sales team, I think I said we went from, I have 30 team members now in Europe. So we're going to be really tripling down the UK market. So can't wait. It's kind of our big, you know, initial kind of meet and greet. So we have a big team coming, and yeah, we can't wait.
Fantastic. Enjoy the weather. You're going to get a chance. So the thing you need to know about the UK, as well as an election, we've got a football tournament this year. So you're going to have to swat up on that and make sure you share the disappointment when England get knocked out.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe not. You never know. Everyone always says this might be the year, right? But
yeah, everyone, it might be our year. There'll be songs sung about it, no doubt. Matt, it's always good to have you on the show. Thanks again for coming in. And as I say, you know, really enjoyed working with you over the last few years. Really enjoyed seeing how the product's evolved, and really, you know, it's exciting to see where it'll be in another 3 years' time. So if people want to get hold of you or have a look at Loxo, what's the best way of doing it?
yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you again. Hopefully you're doing well with in general life and family and business as well. It's good to see you continuing to be involved and invite me here again. If you want to reach out, Loxo.co. Feel free to connect me on LinkedIn. Yeah, or check out the platform. We have a free account. Even there's like a free ATS CRM, which people don't even know about. It's like, you got to be kidding me. But yeah, check out Loxo.co and let us know what you think.
So go and start for free there if you want. Have a look, or go and see like the full demo. I'm sure Mark will be happy to set those up, and we'll put the links below the podcast as well, where you can book in for that as well. Matt, thanks again so much, and you know, look out for catching up soon.
All right, Andy. So great to see you. Thanks so much.